Hello everyone. Who doesn't know Albert Einstein? The name Albert Einstein is synonymous to genius. How a child who was called freak and brother boring in his childhood grew up to be a man who was a visionary, world citizen, and a genius. Let's understand in this class 9 chapter a truly beautiful mind. The greatness and achievements of Albert Einstein cannot be covered in one small chapter. In this chapter, some highlights from his life has been given. Let's read them. Who do you think of when you hear the word genius? Who is a genius? What qualities do you think a genius has? Can you answer that in the comment box? We shall now read about a young German civil servant who took the world by storm about 100 years ago. In the summer of 1905, the 26-year-old published in quick succession 4 groundbreaking papers about light, the motion of particles, the electrodynamics of moving bodies, and energy. His work took up only a few pages in scientific journals, but changed forever our understanding of space, time, and entire cosmos, and transferred the name Einstein into a synonym for genius. Einstein was just 26 years when he surprised the world by publishing his papers in quick succession, that means one after other. The papers were about light, motion of particles, electrodynamics of moving body, and energy. These papers took only few pages in scientific journals. Journals means publications, science publications, but it changed the understanding of the world about space, time, and the entire universe. And the name Einstein becomes synonymous with the word genius. This is how he was declared genius. 50 years after his death, Albert Einstein's genius still reigns. Reigns means rules. It has been a long time since he has died, but his rule, the work that he has done for the world, is still talked about. It is fresh in the mind of people. Albert Einstein was born on 14 March 1879 in the German city of Ulm without any indication that he was destined for greatness. On the contrary, his mother thought Albert was a freak. To her, his head seemed much too large. Freak is a word that is used disapprovingly, not approved, to talk about person who has unusual behavior or habits and who does not look like others. So Albert was born in German city of Ulm on 14th March 1879. There was no indication that he is born to be a great human being in future. On the other hand, his mother used to think that Albert was a freak because his head was large compared to his body. At the age of 2.5, Einstein still wasn't talking. When he finally did learn to speak, he uttered everything twice. Einstein did not know what to do with other children, and his playmates called him brother boring. So the youngster played by himself much of the time. He especially loved mechanical toys. Looking at his newborn sister Maja, he is said to have said, "Fine, but where are her wheels?" Einstein was not talking till the age of 2.5 years, and when he finally learned to speak, he uttered every word twice. Einstein did not know how to play with other children. Hence, his playmates used to call him brother boring. So this young boy started to play within himself. He started to spend much time alone, and he was especially attracted towards mechanical toys. So much that when his new sister was born, his sister Maja was born, he looked at her and he said, "She's fine, but where are her wings?" So he thought his sister is also a mechanical toy. There is an anecdote about Albert Einstein. Otto Neuber, the historian of ancient mathematics, told a story about boy Einstein which he calls a legend, but it seems fairly authentic. As Einstein was a late talker, his parents were worried. And at last, one night at supper table, that means at dinner table, Einstein broke his silence to say, "The soup is too hot." Einstein's parents were greatly relieved, and they asked why he had never said a word before. On which Einstein replied, "Because up to now, everything was in order." This was a reply from a small boy. A headmaster once told his father that what Einstein chose as a profession wouldn't matter because he'll never make a success at anything. Einstein's teachers were not very encouraging, and a headmaster once told his father that it doesn't matter whatever Einstein do in his life, he will never become successful. Einstein began learning to play the violin at the age of 6 because his mother wanted him to. He later became a gifted amateur violinist, maintaining this skill throughout his life. Amateur is someone who does something as interest and not as profession. At the age of 6, Einstein started learning violin because his mother wanted him to learn violin, and later Einstein maintained the skill throughout his life as an amateur violinist. He kept it as his interest. But Albert Einstein was not a bad pupil. Pupil means student. He was not a bad student. He went to high school in Munich. Munich is a city in Germany where Einstein's family had moved when he was 15 months old, and scored good marks in almost every subject. So as a student, he scored good marks in almost every subject. Einstein hated the school's regimentation. Regimentation is order or discipline taken to an extreme. The school was very strict and Einstein hated that and often clashed with his teachers. At the age of 15, Einstein felt so stifled. Stifled means unable to breathe, suffocated there that he left the school for good. So he went to a school in Munich where he did not like the strictness of the school, and he would often clash with his teacher because of the strictness. And at the age of 15, he felt so suffocated that he left that school. The previous year, Albert's parents had moved to Milan. Milan is a city in Italy, and left their son with relatives. After prolonged discussion, Einstein got his wish to continue his education in German-speaking Switzerland, in a city which was more liberal than Munich. Previous year, Einstein's parents had moved to Milan and Einstein was left with some relatives at Munich. But after prolonged discussion, Einstein got his wish fulfilled. His wish was to get educated in a German-speaking part of Switzerland, a city which was more liberal. Liberal is willing to understand and respect other, open-minded as compared to Munich. Einstein was highly gifted in mathematics and he was also interested in physics. And after finishing his school, he decided to study at a university in Zurich. Zurich is a city in Switzerland. But science was not the only thing that appealed to this dashing young man with the walrus mustache. Walrus means long and thick dropping mustache. So these are two pictures of Einstein. We generally know him as a picture which is given as old Einstein, but he was a handsome youngster with thick mustache. He also felt a special interest in a fellow student, Meleva Merrick, whom he found to be a clever creature. So it was not just studies that Einstein was interested in, he was also interested in a fellow student, Meleva Merrick. She was a young Serb who had come to Switzerland because university in Zurich was one of the few in Europe where women could get degrees. At that time, women going to universities and getting degrees was not that common, and University of Zurich in Switzerland was one of the few universities in Europe where women could get degree. Einstein saw in her an ally against the Philistines. Ally means a friend or an associate. Philistines is a word which is used disapprovingly to talk about people who do not like art and literature. So in Meleva, Einstein saw a friend who was also against those people who are against art and literature. That means Einstein and Meleva, they both were interested in art and literature. Those people in his family and at the university with whom he was constantly at odds. At odds means disagreement. So Einstein was interested in art and literature and he was constantly in disagreement against those people in family and university who were against art and literature. And in Meleva, Einstein found a friend who was also interested in art and literature. The couple fell in love, later survived, in which they put their affection into words, mixing science with tenderness. Wrote Einstein, "How happy and proud I shall be when we both have brought our work on relativity to a victorious conclusion." So Einstein and Meleva fell in love and they exchanged letter in which they wrote in the words of science and tenderness, and Einstein wrote that he would be very happy and proud if they both can bring their work on relativity together and it became victorious. That means their love becomes victorious. Their love survive. In 1900, at the age of 21, Albert Einstein was a university graduate and unemployed. He worked as a teaching assistant, gave private lessons, and finally secured a job in 1902 as a technical expert in the patent office in Bern. Patent is a document which gives right of an invention to an inventor. It proves that the invention has been done by the inventor and nobody else can copy it. So in 1900, at the age of 21, Albert was still unemployed. He graduated, but he was unemployed, and he started working as a teaching assistant and giving private lessons. And finally, he got a job in 1902 as a technical office in the patent, as a technical expert in the patent office in Bern. Bern is the capital of Switzerland. While he was supposed to be assisting other people's inventions, Einstein was actually developing his own ideas in secret. So while he was supposed to assess and give patent to other people's invention, he was also developing his own ideas secretly. He is said to have jokingly called his desk drawer at work the Bureau of Theoretical Physics. Bureau is an office or a department for transacting particular business. So he was secretly doing his own invention in his desk drawer, which he called Bureau of Theoretical Physics. Special theory of relativity. One of the famous paper of 1905 was Einstein's special theory of relativity, according to which time and distance are not absolute. Absolute means measured in itself, not in relation to anything else. So this was a very famous theory of Einstein, theory of relativity, in which he proved that times and distance are not independent of each other. They are not absolute. That means they are dependent on each other. Indeed, two perfectly accurate clocks will not continue to show the same time if they come together again after a journey if one of them has been moving very fast relative to the other. So if there are two perfectly clocks showing the same time, and if they come after a long journey of equal distance, but one was traveling faster than the other, then they will not show the same time. This is how he showed that time and distance are not absolute. From this followed the world's most famous formula, which describes the relationship between mass and energy, which is E equal to mc square, where E stands for energy, m for mass, and c is the speed of light in vacuum, which is about 3 lakh km per second. You will read this formula in details in your physics class. There is a famous incident, as Albert Einstein has jokingly said, when you sit with a nice girl for 2 hours, it seems like 2 minutes. And when you sit on a hot stove for 2 minutes, it seems like 2 hours. This is relativity, says Albert Einstein jokingly. While Einstein was solving the most difficult problems in physics, his own private life was unraveling. Unraveling means it was starting to fall. Albert wanted to marry Mileva right after finishing his studies, but his mother was against it. She thought Mileva, who was 3 years older than Einstein, was too old for him. And she was also bothered by Mileva's intelligence. She said that she is a book like you. She thought that Mileva is just like Einstein. They both are intelligent, which the mother not wanted at home. His mother said Einstein put the wedding off. So when his mother said those things, Einstein did not marry Mileva. But the pair finally married in January 1903, and they had 2 sons. But a few years later, the marriage faltered. Their marriage failed, became weak, because Mileva was losing her intellectual ambition and she was becoming an unhappy housewife. So they divorced. After years of constant fighting, the couple finally divorced in 1919, and Einstein then married his cousin Elsa the same year. Einstein's new personal chapter coincided with his rise to world fame. In 1915, he had published his general theory of relativity, which provided a new interpretation of gravity. Interpretation means explanation. As Einstein's personal life was changing, so was his professional life. In 1915, he published his general theory of relativity, which gave a new explanation to gravity. And an eclipse, a solar eclipse in 1919, proved his theory was accurate. Einstein had correctly calculated in advance the extent to which light from fixed star would be deflected. Deflected means change direction because it hit something through the sun's gravitational field. So in this theory, Einstein has correctly calculated way in advance the extent to which light from a particular sun would change its direction due to sun's gravitational field after hitting something. The newspaper claimed that it was a work of scientific revolution. Einstein received a Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921. He was showered with honors and invitation from all over the world and lauded by the press. Lauded means praised. He was praised by the press. So in 1921, Einstein received prestigious Nobel Prize and he was honored with all the invitations and appreciations from all over the world and press. When the Nazis came to power in Germany in 1933, Einstein immigrated to United States. Nazis led by Hitler came to power in Germany in 1933 and many people had to escape Germany and they had to immigrate to other countries. Einstein also immigrated to United States. 5 years later, the discovery of nuclear fission in Berlin had American physicists in an uproar. In an uproar means upset and worried. 5 years later, nuclear fission was discovered in Germany, in Berlin, and American physicists, they were very upset, they were very worried. Many of them had fled from fascism. Fascism means dictatorship, a rule in which people are not allowed to disagree with the government. So many of the scientists had fled from that dictatorship, just as Einstein had, and now they were worried, they were afraid that Nazis could build and use an atomic bomb which would be catastrophic to the world. At the urging of a colleague, Einstein wrote a letter to American President Franklin D. Roosevelt on August 2, 1939, in which he warned a single bomb of this type exploded in a port might very well destroy the whole port together with some of the surrounding territories. So when some of his colleagues urged, Einstein wrote a letter to then President of America, Franklin D. Roosevelt, that if a single bomb of this type is thrown at a port, it will not just destroy the entire port but also the surrounding territory. And his word did have an effect on the Americans, and the effect was that Americans developed their own bomb in secret project and they dropped it on Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. Einstein had warned against this bomb, and American, as being opportunists, took it in a way that they developed their own bomb and they threw it on Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the whole world knows how much of destruction it brought. Einstein was deeply shaken. He was deeply disturbed by the extent of destruction that was caused because of war and atomic bomb. And this time he wrote a public missive. Missive is a letter, especially long and official, to the United States. In it, he proposed the formation of world government. Unlike the letter to Roosevelt, this one made no impact. He wrote a letter to United Nations in which he proposed that there should be a world government for peace and democracy. But unlike the letter to American President Roosevelt, this letter had no impact on the United Nations. But over the next decade, Einstein got ever more involved in politics, agitating for an end to the arms build-up and using his popularity to campaign for peace and democracy. So his letter had no impact, but over the next decade, Einstein became involved in politics. He spoke against the building of arms, weapons and wars, and he spoke for democracy, for peace. He used his popularity to speak for world peace and democracy. When Einstein died in 1955 at the age of 76, he was celebrated as a visionary and world citizen as much as a scientific genius. Visionary is a person who can think about future in an original and intelligent way. Einstein died at the age of 76 in 1955. By that time, he was well known around the world as a visionary and a world citizen as much as he was known as a scientific genius. His reign after years of his death still rules. He is still a genius, he is still a visionary, and he is still a world citizen. So is the title of the chapter justified? A truly beautiful mind? Yes, of course it is justified. Einstein did not just give his contribution as a scientist to the world, but he also gave his contribution as a visionary. He worked for peace. Although being a scientist, he could have worked the other way, but he worked for peace and democracy, and he spent the last years of his life in bringing peace and democracy in the world. He was deeply hurt and shaken by the extent of destruction that war and atomic bomb has caused. So he used his popularity to speak against weapon and to speak for world peace and democracy. This was the life and greatness of Einstein. So this is about this chapter, students. I will see you in my next video. Till then, bye bye. Take care.